I'm here with Steve Solomon, author and journalist at WEFTEC 2010 in New Orleans. Steve, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
And I've got a few questions. What are, you know, in your words, what are some of the top challenges? It's kind of a big picture question. Top challenges facing, municipal water districts, both legislative and regulatory these days.
Yeah. Well, of course, I think the technologies, you need the money to invest in some of the technologies. I think my experience is that the engineering folks know pretty well what some of their options are. Some of their constraints are costs and politics. I mean, partly the rate structures don't encourage you to save water,
Yep.
because then you don't derive the revenues that you need to upgrade the infrastructure. I think the other thing is to make sure that you're looking at the reliability, emphasis on the reliability of your water source by having some diversity of sources. So you want some from reuse, some possibly from desal if you need it, some that you buy from the authorities, some from groundwater, et cetera, et cetera.
Which brings me to my next question. Sustainability is defined by a variety of people in a variety of different ways. It's actually somewhat of an ambiguous definition these days. Without asking you to throw your definition into the hat, what do you think it'll take for the U.S. the U.S. water and wastewater systems to become sustainable on a national level?
Well, of course, there are many places where we are sustainable, and by sustainable I do mean the net where the precipitation and the runoff, for example, where the use is exceeding the precipitation and the runoff.
Okay.
So we are over pumping groundwater where the groundwater tables are collapsing.
Right.
That's clearly not a sustainable situation. Where rivers and such are being drained before they can get to their deltas, that probably is not sustainable. So the problem is regional as opposed to necessarily national. I mean, it is across the country. In that sense, it's national.
Right.
But it's region by region, locality by locality. What will it take to begin to address them? Usually, unfortunately, crises are the things that get us to start to focus our minds. And yet, the Southeast had a crisis, a big one. And today, I'm told they can't even, they've sort of basically abandoned the concept of, or can't get a project started down there that would alleviate the problem for the next time. And it's going to come back.
One of those crises, I assume, is one of the 400 dead zones worldwide that you mentioned this morning in the general session. One of which is right here in New Orleans.
Right.
And fixing this again requires a holistic approach, multi-jurisdictional.
Right.
What needs to get done to get past those
one of the things,
differences?
just to take the Mississippi, I was even looking at the Mississippi, which is part of the problem. And the wetlands, and if you wanted to inject more water down the Mississippi for new wetlands, for example, you've got you got to coordinate the Bureau of Reclamation that controls some of the dams, let's say on the Missouri.
Right.
The Army Corps, which has to agree for transportation purposes, and the EPA has got to be on board. So in our country, we have no really central coordinating mechanism to do that. It would be very helpful to have it. But the problem with offshore, in particular, problems is that it's a little bit like the problem of the commons. I mean, nobody's living immediately with the problem in the most visible way, except maybe some fishermen, and they don't have quite enough political clout to get the attention. So it's a tough one, but when a crisis happens that's big, sometimes it does focus the attention on it.
Now, wrapping all this up, and that's kind of the big question here, is how will all of this affect municipal water managers in the next decade? How will this change their roles? I mean, they're ever evolving, but
well, I'll tell you one thing that's happening. It's pretty amazing. In some places, the water plan that the planners put in, and which the municipalities, of course, are implementers of, and maybe have some influence in, are being used in some places as development tools to limit development of a region by saying, the water's only going to go extend to such cover such and such regions of the area. But I think it's going to be a revolution for water managers because more and more you're going to have to find creative ways of reusing reusing resources, finding alternative resources. You're going to have to be very imaginative because your basic resource is going to become scarcer. The price of it is likely to go up, and that's going to create political problems for you and pressures, and you're going to have to field those.
What's out there today that's innovative and
Well,
unique that you?
Well, I mean, Orange County. I was in Orange County. They've been doing some pretty creative things too, and with the groundwater projects. But also, they're looking even at desal offshore.
Oh, really?
They took me out to a proto plant in the Santa Ana River. Used to be a river that extended out into the Pacific Ocean, and it still has its estuary, if you will, goes out into the ocean underground. So they're looking at drawing water through the sands of that estuary to reduce the turbidity of the water, and therefore the cost of having to
Very interesting.
do it offshore. So that might be another way to bring down the cost.
Yeah.
The heat recapture for desal has been a major reason why energy costs on desal have come down and why the cost of desal has come down. And of course the membranes have been improved. So there are things happening that you got to stay abreast of.
Right.
And Orange County certainly is one place that's
Great.
great.
Well, thank you very much.